Because the Judicial Service Commission met for its biannual session of interviews for appointment to superior courts. In April 2022, the Commission interviewed 5 candidates for 2 vacancies and recommended 4 names for President Cyril Ramaphosa to choose from. For more insight on these interviews, Zikhona Ndlebe, researcher at Judges Matters, joins us now. Zikhona, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. So twice or so every year, the Judicial Service Commission sets out these interviews, and they take place to fill some important, I suppose, judicial positions in the country. Having a look at the shortlisted candidates, what are your immediate impressions of the pool in which the JSC would need to choose from?
Hi, Thabo. Good evening. So the JSC is currently sitting and interviewing candidates for the various positions that exist in the superior courts, and we've got good candidates that are going to be interviewed that have been shortlisted. So today we saw the JSC interviewing Justice Molemela for the position of being President of the Supreme Court of Appeal. And it is unfortunate that the JSC will not be interviewing any candidates for the position that exists in the Constitutional Court. And this was because that there were not enough candidates to shortlist for that position. And this is a great concern for us, but we are seeing good candidates that are going to be appearing before the JSC this week.
So what does it mean that there are not enough candidates to be considered for the position of the vacancy and in the Constitutional Court?
So it means that there were not enough candidates that were nominated to be shortlisted for the position in the Constitutional Court. So you have to remember that in order for the JSC to make a recommendation to the President for appointment to the Constitutional Court, there has to be 3 names more than the vacancy that exists in the Con Court, and there's currently 1 vacancy, and there was basically no 4 candidates that could be interviewed by the JSC. That is what it means in respect of the Constitutional Court.
So would that mean that there are not enough candidates that meet the criteria of being a Constitutional Court judge, and what would that criteria be?
I do not believe that there are not enough candidates that meet that criteria, but it's just that because the JSC, candidates have to be nominated, and then they have to accept that nomination in order for them to be shortlisted by the JSC. So that process of nomination and the shortlisting did not yield at least 4 candidates to be shortlisted. So if you were to look at the criteria for appointment to as a judge and appointment to the Constitutional Court, you have to look at your leadership skills, whether you're a fit and proper person and you're appropriately qualified, you've got the necessary experience, and you've held some leadership positions in the past. And also, one of the unwritten requirements is acting appointments. So whether you would have acted at the Constitutional Court before you are interviewed by the JSC. So those are some of the criteria that the JSC would look at. But it is not to say that there aren't candidates that embody those criteria, but it's just that they're not enough that would have enabled the JSC to shortlist for interviewing.
So looking at the vacancies themselves, I mean, if you look at the Competition Appeal Court, 5 vacancies, Electoral Court, 1 vacancy. You look at the Gauteng Division of the High Court, 5 vacancies there. Others is mostly just 1 vacancy. In Mpumalanga, you're looking at a Judge President vacancy there. Are these vacancies an indication at all of or somebody should be worried about the fact that there are 5 vacancies in the High Court, that the work of the judiciary is not being conducted the way that it should be?
I don't think that there should be a grave worry regarding the number of vacancies that are there. And this is something that was mentioned in today's interview for Justice Molemela, which is that there's attrition. So you get judges that are retiring. So that is why there are so many vacancies, or that is why there are always vacancies in these different courts. But if there is a vacancy in a court and there is no permanent judge, then there will definitely be an acting judge in that position. So it is not to say that there is no one to perform the duty in a particular vacancy that a permanent judge would perform.
Now, previously, when you and I were having these conversations, particularly around the interviews, it was a whole lot of debate going on about how the process was being conducted, whether it was becoming too politically driven more than it is about the competency of the judges to do their work. Are you seeing any difference in how this process is being conducted?
We are definitely seeing a lot of difference, Thabo, and I think this is especially since there was litigation that almost took place regarding the process undertaken by the JSC. And that was in 2021 in the April interviews. And the JSC actually had to rerun those interviews in October. And we have seen a lot of change. And I also think the changes can be attributed to the fact that there has been different commissioners that are now sitting in the JSC. We've got Advocate Ngubaitobi, we've got Advocate Clay, we've got Advocate Baloy. These are members of the commission that are playing a vital role in asking the correct questions. And of course, we've got members of parliament who are also asking relevant questions in the JSC. So we've seen a lot of difference that has taken place. And also, today the JSC announced at the beginning of the interview that it has decided to adopt a criteria, which is something that we've been advocating for so long, that it's necessary to have something written in black and white, and so that people know what the JSC is looking for. And it will also be a form of a guideline when it comes to the type of questions that candidates are asked. So we've seen that happen, and that is that's great. We are happy about that.
So what then can people expect as far as that criteria, especially when it comes to additional questions that scrutinize the integrity of the candidates, their I suppose political leanings, and maybe even their financial propriety?
Okay. So before the interview took place this morning, the Chief Justice Raymond Zondo explained something that I think is very important. He explained that the whole purpose of the JSC, it is to question candidates, to ensure that they are suitable for the position that they are being interviewed for. And he announced that there's the criteria that has been adopted, which includes Section 174 of the Constitution, but it has additional criteria to it, which includes independent-mindedness of the candidate, whether the candidate is qualified and the candidate has any leadership skills, whether the appointment of the candidate will send a positive message to the society, and also considering whether the candidate embodies diversity, because when you've got judges appointed, you want to have judges that are diverse, to ensure that all the people that appear before the courts are accommodated, or have people that are sitting in the bench and who understand where they are coming from. So it's a criteria that we have. So people appearing before the JSC should expect that that criteria that has been adopted by the JSC will be implemented. And having the criteria is not to say that the JSC will not be vigorous in asking questions. And this is something that the Chief Justice explained today before the interview started. But it is to say that candidates that appear before the JSC will be treated with the utmost respect that they deserve, and they will not be treated in a disrespectful manner, as we have seen in the past JSC interviews. So I think that is something very important that the Chief Justice explained this morning.
Women in judicial leadership, of course, then becomes another conversation that we need to have. What are you looking at, particularly this time around, in terms of what the JSC needs to do actively to encourage women to actually put themselves forward?
So in the past, we said that there are just not enough women appointed in leadership positions, and there are still not nearly enough women that are in leadership positions currently. Because if you look at the heads of courts, for example, now at least now we've got Judge President Boyo Dlwati, who is the recently appointed Judge President of KwaZulu-Natal. But we still need more women in leadership positions to represent, to ensure that there's diversity in the judiciary. And it's great and all to know that there are women judges, but more needs to be done. And I think that the JSC is working towards this. So, for example, today, Justice Molemela, who was being interviewed by the JSC, the JSC has said that it will recommend her for a permanent appointment to the position of President of the Supreme Court of Appeal. So that is a step towards the right direction. And tomorrow there's going to be interviews for the Mpumalanga High Court, and we've got Judge Mphahlele, who's going to be interviewed. She is a woman, and we are hoping that she will also be recommended, but we'll have to wait and see how the interview goes. But the whole point is that we still need more women in leadership positions, not just in the judiciary. And of course, this goes back to the legal profession, because to get women in leadership positions and to get women judges, it means that the legal profession has to be transformed as well as a whole, because that is where judges come from. For example, they come from the attorney's profession, the advocate's profession. So we need a transformation at the lower level as well.
Are you concerned at all around that question, which was put today, around the fact that mostly women judges who are attached to Justice Maya are being recommended for positions?
I think Justice Molemela answered that question adequately. And it would be very concerning to know that acting judges are appointed based on who they know. But if you listened to the question that was posed by Advocate Pillay, she corrected how the question was understood, which is not to say that acting judges were appointed based on having known the former president of the Supreme Court of Appeal. That is not what the question was, but the question was basically asking, should there not be a process that has to be followed when it comes to appointing acting judges to the various courts and specifically to the Supreme Court of Appeal? And Justice Molemela did answer this question, and she stated that if she is actually appointed as the president of the Supreme Court of Appeal, she will try to put procedures in place to ensure that there is fairness in the appointment of acting judges to that court. But it would be concerning if appointments to acting positions were dependent on who a person knows. But from what we heard today and from what we know, that is not the case.
Zikhona, I appreciate your time as always. Thank you very much for coming on. That is Judges Matter researcher Zikhona Ndlebe.